All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Rakakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Rakakadash, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. All right, and what I want to get into this morning, is, showing appreciation, because in these last days, Yahweh Bashem Al Shai, is doing a mighty work, in the earth. Great judgment is getting ready to go forth, but then also great mercy. Okay, and the Lord, has opened up, the elect, the hopeful elect, to this understanding, all right, and understanding how to be pleasing unto Him, because we was in a dead situation. The truth has revived us in these last days. We was a people, that was wounded. The scriptures speak about us being wounded with the wound of an enemy, okay, and that enemy being Esau, Edom, in his last captivity, man. It done a number on us as a people, all right, in which we're still recovering. But the recovery, the true recovery process begins with Yahweh Shah, man. And as the Lord, is healing us, man, we are to show that appreciation by forwarding this word. As we're healing, we spread the healing to the rest of our people. And we know only a remnant of our people is going to get it. Okay? So as we're healing, we become, a vessel, that the Lord uses to heal others, man. And that's a sign of appreciation and thanks to Yahweh Bashem Al Shai for the healing, man. And it makes me think, because this account, always stood out to me when you go into the book of Mark, chapter 1, verse 29. It says, "And forthwith, when they will come out of the synagogue, they entered into the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. But Simon's wife mother lay sick of a fever, and Anan, all right, they tell him of her, so in urgency, so here it is, you have Peter's mother-in-law, okay, who was sick, okay, and Yahweh Shah was brought in to heal that sickness, okay. It says, and he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. So this is Yahweh Shah. And immediately the fever left her, and she ministered unto them. Okay? So as soon as she was healed, because as soon as Yahweh Shah touched her, the fever, went away. Okay? And as soon as she was healed, what did she do? She went and started serving. You see? She went and started serving, man. So as we're, and that's the process we go through, because as we begin to heal, then what? We begin to start serving, man. Okay? Brothers hear this word, the demons, is getting preached off us, man. And we begin to heal in our minds and our spirit. And then what? We eventually go and minister ourselves, man. Okay? And that's an appreciation for their healing, because we're being healed, all right, to be a healing, to be an extension of the healing of Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. Because the healing doesn't come from us, it comes through us, through Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. Through Yahweh Shai, man. Okay? So it's always stood out that as soon as she got, healed, she immediately went up and began to minister, man. Okay? And Yahweh Shai, when you read the book of Matthew chapter 10, okay, and we know his number one message that he always preached, and he told his disciples to preach. When you go to Matthew 10 and 7, it said, and as you go, preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Which that's the good news. That's the climax of the good news, is that there's a kingdom coming, all right, for, all right, Israel, man. Okay, the people that's the tail of this society. Okay, the people, who needs a healing more than anyone. All right, well, there's a kingdom that's coming. You see, there's a rulership, there's an everlasting rulership, man. Okay, and as we await that kingdom, we're being healed by this word, man. You see, And Yahweh Shai has turned us into ministers, okay, to forward the healing to the rest of the elect, man. And that's a sign of appreciation. That's a token of appreciation, man. You know, because like I said, we can't earn the kingdom, okay? It's an eternal kingdom. There's no way to earn eternity, man. You see? But what we're doing, we're showing that appreciation, and that appreciation shows faith. You know, the appreciation also is a token of faith, man. You see? Because we have this healing, but then we look forward to even more to come. See, the healing is just the beginning of the Lord's goodness, man. Us being healed, you know, in this captivity, you know, by this word, that's the beginning of the Lord's goodness. You see, there's much more to come. You see, so we show appreciation for, you know, this healing and what's to come, man. You know, we appreciate the Lord for his goodness and what he's getting ready to do, man. He's finna rid the earth of wickedness, okay? He's finna establish, you know, a righteous government in the earth, okay? You know, we finna overcome death. We finna defeat death, man. You see? So what we're doing, we're showing appreciation to the Lord's goodness, man. And Lord will we endure, man, and we're delivered, you know, at the end of this thing, man. Okay? So, reading on, all right, Matthew 10:7, and as you go, preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. Freely you have received, freely give. Okay? So as we freely receive, you know, this healing through the preaching of this word, man, we, you know, forward that on, you know, to the hopeful elect, man, to the church, man. We forward that healing on. Okay? And the body is beginning what? To be healed, you know, as a whole. You know, the whole body, the church, the believers, which make up the body of Yahweh Shai, whether the body is just constantly healing, man, becoming whole. You know, we're becoming sound. We're beginning to function in righteousness, man. You know, through the Spirit to the best of our ability. Okay? Now, I want to get this account. All right? When you go into the book of Luke 17. All right, and 11, it says, and it came to pass, Luke 17:11 says, and it came to pass as he went to Jerusalem, that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. All right, he passed between, you know, Samaria and Galilee. You know, with Samaria, you know, you had heathens, but you had Jake in the mix. You know, but the Jake that was over there, you know, they was more so living like the heathen. That's why he told the disciples, don't go into Samaria, you know, because they wasn't built up enough, you know, to deal with their dynamic. You know, he told them stay in the midst of Judea and just teach, you know, amongst Israel. You know, don't go amongst the Gentiles, even though you had Jake. Okay, there was amongst them that was more so, you know, living more like, you know, the heathen that was in Samaria at the time. Okay, so when you go to you read on, it says Luke 17:12, it says, and as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers, which stood afar off, and they lifted up their voices and said, Yahweh Shai, Master, have mercy on us, man. And it shows you that the name of Yahweh Shai, you know, had become famous in that region. Okay, and then first off, what did they show? They showed faith. All right, they called Yahweh Shai, then they acknowledged him as Master. Okay, they had reverence for Yahweh Shai, man. You see, so they called upon Yahweh Shai, and they called him Master. You see, so read on. It says, and when he saw them, he said unto them, go show yourselves unto the priests. And it came to pass as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, and with a loud voice glorified the Most High, and fell down on his face. All right, and fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan, because he was of that land. This is an Israelite, but he was from the land of Samaria, which you had actual Gentiles and heathens in Samaria. Okay, so he was an Israelite that was of, Samaria. Okay, so reading on, it says, and Yahushua answered, were there not 10 cleansed, but where are the 9? There are not found. It said there are not found that return to give glory to the Most High, save this stranger. And he said unto him, Arise, go thy way, thy faith have made thee whole. So out of the 10, you have 1 come back. Okay? You had 1, and he was of the land of Samaria. So he wasn't even brought up in the customs of the law, but he had, faith to show that appreciation to Yahushua, to come back and show that appreciation. It was only 1 out of 10. And the remnant is a rare thing amongst our people, that spirit. See, the remnant have a different spirit. That's why scriptures say, dealing with Yahushua, how he's precious, to a remnant. Okay? So you see that he valued, what Yahushua did, and he had the mind to come and show that appreciation, man, and come praise Yahushua, praise the Most High, because of what Yahushua did. Okay? So he was healed, he was cleansed, and he was appreciative, man, and his actions showed that he was appreciative. That's what shows we appreciative, is the actions. Okay? And that's what the Lord expects. He expects our faith to be showed in action. Okay? In our conduct, in our patience, in our obedience, in our sacrifice, in our commitment. That's how appreciation is shown. That's how faith is shown through action. Okay? So as we've been healed, there's a continual appreciation, that we, there's a continual appreciation that we show, okay, in our action, man, towards Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah, towards serving, and ministering, man. You see? And then there's even another reward on the back end for that. Matter of fact, let's get that. And we'll end it there. This is the book of Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 10. Alright? It says, But the Most High is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love which you have showed towards his name, showing that we will have the name. How could we labor and show, how could we labor, okay, in love, alright, towards the name if we don't know the name? How could we labor and toil, towards the Lord's name and don't know the name? What sense does that make, man? How could we do that? Okay? So reading again, Hebrews 6 and 10, For the Most High is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love which you have showed towards his name, and that ye have ministered to the saints and do minister. Okay? And that we have ministered to the saints and do minister, man. Okay? So Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah, in these last days, has really showed, okay, that he has really sent forth the healing, and that healing is being forwarded to the rest of the church, man. And it's all a sign of appreciation. And in these last days, there's a reward, for this labor. We in a time now where we're going to get rewarded on the back end. The healing itself is a gift that we should be forever grateful for. The fact that the Lord saw it fit to heal us, in the midst of this captivity, man. When our people are likened unto dry bones. You see? When our people are getting worse. You look at Jake, man, and Jake is getting worse, man. Imagine if the healing didn't come. What position would it be, man? Jake is finna get nuked. Okay? Behind that behavior, man. The Lord is finna take Jake through some horrific times. 2/3 finna go through horrific times, man. But the Lord saw it fit, to heal us, man. So we can have mercy. So he can have mercy on us. Because it's all for our benefit. The Lord, began the healing in us so he can have mercy on us, man. So we can labor and toil, okay? And then be rewarded for our labors, man. You know, and it's all because of the goodness of Yahweh Bashim Shai, man. So yeah, man, this is beautiful. This is a beautiful predicament the Lord has, you know, the hopeful leg in, man. So may we adhere, you know, and may we, you know, make it on the chariots, man, and be a part, you know, of this amazing blessing and promise, all right, of Yahweh Bashim Shai towards a remnant of his people, man. So that was the point, Lord will you brothers, all right, and you few sisters edified. Till next time I say shalom.